Hey everybody, today is December 24th, so we'll be looking at December 23rd's MTG stocks. And as you can see here, we have a lot of Theros Beyond Death cards. This is the new set that's coming up in I think January 18th, somewhere around then, where the set will release. I am trying to still stay away from it a little bit, because I feel like when that next set comes out, actually, these cards will be all over the place, and it'll be sort of fun to track, but a lot of these prices are very skewed and don't make a lot of sense, and etc. They're cool cards, and we may still go over them a little bit as closer as time gets to the release date. But for now, let's look at some other cards. Besides these weird Theros ones, there wasn't a lot of big price increases. The ones we'll be looking at is like Nicol Bolas and stuff like that. We have a couple of price decreases. So let's go ahead and look at our first card, which is Nicol Bolas, the Ravager. This one is a neat card because Nicol Bolas was a creature card for a long time, then it kind of became a planeswalker, and then kind of goes back and forth here and there. And this one is kind of like the middle of the two. This one costs a colorless blue, black, and red. It's a legendary creature, Elder Dragon. It's a 4/4 flying, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. That's pretty good. I mean, 4 mana, make everybody discard a card, have a flying of 4/4, can be pretty brutal. But then it has, you can pay 4 colorless, blue, black, red, exile Nicol Bolas, then return it to the battlefield transformed. Under his owner's control, activate his ability only time you can cast a sorcery. So to make a note here, this is a legendary creature, and this is how it starts out. So you can use him as your commander. But what's cool is that when we transform him, we'll see he actually does become a planeswalker. So this is a neat way to get a planeswalker as your commander. Of course, there are commanders where you can use him as your planeswalker, but this is a kind of like different way to go about it. And this one, this is Nicol Bolas the Arisen, legendary planeswalker Bolas. His +2 is draw 2 cards. Pretty good. His -3 is does 10 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Pretty decent. I mean, like, this is, if someone has a really big creature and you really need to get rid of it, you can do it, but it's probably more for the planeswalker. This is like, oh, this guy has like 8 loyalty and he's about to use his ability. Nope. His -4 is target creature, or put target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Also really nice, because I mean, at the point in time, if you're doing a Super Friends deck, which is basically a bunch of planeswalkers, you probably have a couple of planeswalkers in your deck by the time you get them out, and you can immediately use this ability if you need, because he starts at 7 loyalty, I should say. Then his -12 ability, which is his ultimate, I guess, exile all but the bottom card of target player's library. This is basically, you're going to mill somebody and they're going to die very quickly and painfully. Not painfully, I guess. They'll just kind of phase out into the world. But these are all very, very good abilities, and I think it's kind of neat that they put it on a legendary creature. I guess I should mention here that this is a price increase card. This went from $23 to $25.82, so $2 or $3 increase. Not much else to say about this card except that it's really good, and it kind of sucks that it's so expensive, because it's one of those cards where you're like, oh, that'd be really cool to make a Nicol Bolas planeswalker deck, because you don't usually get that opportunity too often, except for like the first 1 or 2 Nicol Bolases. I think it may have only been 1 Nicol Bolas before planeswalkers started happening. I can't remember now. But this is a good way to go if you have the budget, or if you're okay with proxying. So let's go ahead and go to our second card of the day. This is Fanatical Devotion. This one increased from $1.25 to $2, so almost 100% increase. This one's really cool. I like this card a lot because it's an enchantment. It's a white enchantment because it costs 2 colorless and a white, but it has sacrifice a creature, regenerate target creature. And so what I like about this card is, and right here, it's kind of weird. It shows here as 324, but MTG stock it's showing 2. As I said, these prices are always kind of like up and down, whatever they may actually be, because this one may have like kept increasing since we last saw it. So maybe this is a little bit older data, and so now today it's 324 or whatever. But regardless, I like this card because it's actually a sacrifice outlet for white. I don't think white has a ton of sacrifice outlets, and especially free sacrifice outlets. So if you're doing, this would probably be better like Abzan, I would say, because black and green having like dredge or just in general graveyard, etc. could be really good. Or even Mardu. Mardu does well in reanimation, I'd say. But this is nice that you just have a free sacrifice. And regenerating target creature can be pretty helpful too, especially if your commander is kind of reliant on it. So I can see why this card is going up. I'm surprised I've just never heard of it before. It is super neat. I like it a lot. So our next two cards will be our price decrease cards. And so the first one is the Victus Asmadi. I like this card's art. He's just like, I don't know why. It's one of those things where it's like, it's a goofy, but I like it. It is not a good card, by the way. This card costs 2 colorless, black, red, green. As you can imagine, it's pretty hard to get out. This decreased from 2184 to 2042, but as we can see, that's just the Legends here. The Chronicles is like 50 cents, so I mean, it's just because Legends is an older set. It's always weird to me because the Chronicles, I think, was the reprint set, the one that nobody liked back in the day because everybody lost value in their cards and etc. But as you can see, they almost have the exact same symbol. I guess in Chronicles is the white bordered as well, so that's probably the other reason why it's not worth as much. But anyways, what this card does, it's flying. It's a legendary creature, Elder Dragon, has flying. It's a 7/7, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay black, red, green. So that's already hard to get off on upkeep payments. And then it has, you can use black, red, or green to give it +1/+0 until end of turn. So it's, I mean, sure, he's pumpable for a commander. I mean, if you have a lot of ways to give haste to him, and you have a lot of ways to basically pump him up, or mana ramp, I should say, to get him to pump up, then he's okay, I guess. But I feel like there's better Voltron commanders, because that's basically what he is. He can be a Voltron commander, but if you cast him once and you have to cast him again, it's going to suck because of those having 2 of each color is very, very rough. But I love his goofy art there. Good old stuff. He does have a newer card. It's not like newer in the sense of a new artwork, but a newer card where he's a little bit better. But cool to see the good old Elder Dragons. And the next card here is Spell Shock. This one is a 2 colorless red enchantment. Whenever a player casts a spell, Spell Shock deals 2 damage to that player. This one decreased from $5.63 to $5. Besides that, it's basically one of those punishment cards. I can think of Zozu liking this card a lot, or just any kind of group slug deck. Group slug decks are basically decks where you're constantly dealing damage to kind of you, or to your opponents mostly, but also to yourself, and you're trying to make the game a lot faster by decreasing everybody's life totals. It can be pretty fun if you like faster games. This one seems like it does sort of a counter kind of to like combo decks, for storm decks especially, I'd say, because when someone casts their storm spell and then they're like, I'm gonna copy this spell 10 times, and it's like, well, you're gonna have to take 20 damage. Well, that's not good. So I think storm says cast, pretty sure, but that's why it's kind of like a neat card, just having like that constant punishment to everybody. Because like Zozu, for instance, he says like whenever a land enters the battlefield, its controller takes 2 damage, and like that's usually just 2 damage per turn, maybe less depending on how late you're in the game, or more if you're against like a green deck or something. But this one is really bad for a lot of people because it's cast a spell. So most people are going to cast at least 1 spell per turn, probably 2 or 3 depending on how late it is in the game. So this can deal out a lot of damage really quick. I think that's kind of like a neat and fast group slug. If you like to punish everybody, it's pretty good. The next card will be our commander card, which is Karador, Ghost Chieftain. This card, I like this card a lot. It's around $10-ish, which is a little bit cheaper. I like this card a lot. So I like spirits, of course. I'm a spirit boy because of Kamigawa. But what it does here is it costs 5 colorless, an Abzan or white, black, green. And the 5 colorless is pretty expensive, but let's go to his abilities real quick after we see that he is a legendary creature, Center Spirit, and he's a 3/4. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. So with that, basically, if you have 5 creatures in your graveyard, he now only costs white, black, green. And with his commander attacks, if you have 7 creatures in your graveyard, he still only costs white, black, green. Pretty good. It basically, to me, it screams Dredge. And Dredge is a very good way to get creatures to your graveyard, and I think it'd be very fun just to make like an Oops All Creatures deck almost, or something similar to that. It just seems very good. I mean, he's only a 3/4, so it's not like you're putting out like a 7/7 and everybody's like, oh gosh, he's putting us 3 mana 7/7 or something. But the other great ability is during each of your turns, you may cast 1 creature card from your graveyard. So while it's not like you don't get to do it for free or anything, it's very good recursion. I think probably one of the better ones I can think of would be, I believe it's Reclamation Sage. I feel like that's what it is. But basically, it's a green elf. He costs 2 colorless and a green. When he enters the battlefield, he can destroy target artifact or enchantment. That, for like this guy, it seems really good because, you know, you play him once, let him die off for whatever you need to. When he's in your graveyard and you have Karador, like, all right, I really need to destroy another artifact or enchantment, and you have a really good ways to bring out that kind of destroy effects, or just in general, you need big creatures, or it's really good utility, I think. And I think that's will be pretty fun to use if you make this a Dredge deck and you have a lot of creatures in your deck. So pretty excited. It's probably be, whenever I get to an Abzan deck, this will probably be my commander for sure. I think I've talked about Teneb before, and I do like Teneb still, but I think Karador probably outscales him for me just because I like Dredge too much. Yep, pretty much. Teneb is a Dredge commander too, I believe, but I think this one is, I mean, I guess he costs more, so I guess a lot of people, I don't know if people completely agree with that, but I would say it's, well, fairly well known that he's better than Teneb. Pretty sure it's Teneb. Whatever the Abzan legendary Elder Dragon is. And then for our random card of the night, since it is the holidays, we'll be looking at Decorated Knight. This is a 3 colorless blue human knight that has an adventure, Present Arms, which is 2 colorless and a blue. The adventure is a sorcery, and exchange your library with another deck from you own outside the game. Shuffle your library. So this is an interesting effect, to say the least. So you basically are like, the sorcery's name is Present Arms. So since this is supposed to be a more holiday related card, like presents, and it's interesting because like I don't know like exactly how you'd break the deck. Like I can imagine you have like 3 or 4 decks that you just have laying on the outside, and if someone, you can like counter another deck, I guess. Like if you got into the competitive scene with this card, you could probably do some weird crazy stuff. This is not legal anywhere, as you can see. Not legal, not legal, not legal. And that's because this one is specifically a Happy Holidays card. And Happy Holidays cards are basically, Wizards makes holiday cards every year. I don't know if they skipped a year or two, but I'm pretty sure since for a while now, they basically have made these holiday cards, and they're special cards that I believe they give to distributors or LGSs or specific people that, and they're like, you know what, here you go. Here's kind of like a thanks, sort of. But the last years were like Bah Humbugs, which I really like that one. So they're all very neat cards, but they're not legal anywhere. They're more just for collecting. And I guess let's get to the other part of this card. The actual creature part of this card is a human knight, and when it attacks, draw a card from your original deck if it's outside the game. So if you play Present Arms, you switch your decks, and then you can, when you attack with him, you get to draw a card from your other. It's really weird. Actually playing this card, I couldn't even imagine, but it's very, very cool. I like these cards. These are basically, they're more or less unhinged cards, I would say, or unstable or unglued, whatever one you prefer. But very, very neat stuff. I also like, it's kind of like this, I guess, a unicorn. I don't really know why it's a unicorn. Then you have very festive with his lance. He's got ornaments all over him. Good stuff. Then as always, we'll end off tonight with a couple of random cards. Random card number 1 is Mind Control. Oof. Mind Control is 3 colorless blue enchantment aura. Enchant creature. You control enchanted creature. Is this like a crazy card? Probably not. You could probably get something much better for 5 mana. But depending on what kind of deck you're playing, this could be exactly what you want. Like if you are a deck that likes to take control of your opponent's stuff, or like I think this would be decent in a Lazov deck. And it's very disruptive to your opponent though. You're like, you take control of their commander or something, and like, oh boy, now I can't do anything depending on their type of deck. It could be pretty devastating. I generally don't like playing these effects. That's just me. But it is, I think it's a good card. I mean, I know why it's not like super expensive because it's 5 mana, but regardless, the artwork's pretty interesting. I like this because you see, you have this little boy over here, and you have the little, I guess, a mind control orb. We'll call it that because that's what it is. And you have a big creature over here, and you're like, they're having a good old time. They're little buddies now. He doesn't know that he's under control, but I do like kind of like this demon-looking guy. I don't know. Looks good. I like it. Anyways, our second random card for tonight is Soldier Token. We'll get a third one, but I do like the artwork. It's very cool. It's got good moon, got blood on the sword, got fire in the background. What's this from? Modern Masters 2015. Huh, this looks like an older artwork, but I like it. Third random card. Natural Connection. This is 2 colorless, green, instant. Search your library for a basic land, put on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. So basically, it's a worse Kodama's Reach or whatever. The only thing this could be okay for is if you really need that instant speed for some reason, like if you're trying to trick somebody for some reason, I guess. But generally, you're going to probably run Kodama's Reach or Cultivate more often. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you have some good holidays, and I'll see you next time.